Out of Luke Foleys, our leader, about 3 weeks ago, when he actually came straight out and said, "We will never preference, we'll always be putting them last." And that was, I thought, was it a brave comment? I thought it was a really important comment, but it also made people like me know that that's what our party stands for. And when I say people like me, I mean people who, have a different cultural background. And then we pointed the same question to Miss Berejiklian. Will you do it? And she would not give a definitive answer. And so then we say, I know where we stand. We stand in terms of, in the principle of what's right. If it means that we're going to sweep to the right, then that's not who we are. And that's not certainly what I would like to be a part of. I understand and I recognise that, there's a broad church, so to speak, in every party. But the thing that actually makes us, we need to go back to what our Labor values are. And the thing that actually makes us appeal to people is that we are the party to give an opportunity to everyone. And when I sit around with my colleagues to the right of me, here's a really good example. Yesterday, I was door knocking with a person from the Jewish faith. He's an MP, and we just laughed because we were door knocking in Woy Woy, and he goes, "Gee," he goes, "Here we are, a Muslim guy and a Jewish guy are door knocking in a place where they've probably never seen the two together." But I said, that's what we are. And to the right of me sits somebody who's a Russian Orthodox. To the left of me is a Greek Orthodox. Behind me is someone from Laos. We represent what I think also is that idea of modern multicultural Australia. We need to address it. I think the problem for the Libs is they kind of don't know how to do it. They're so worried about losing voters that they're actually not taking a stance. I think there's more people who say, no, take a position and tell us what you stand for. Because that is actually something that I think is a matter of principle. So very clearly Luke Foleys came out and said, we will always put them last, and put the challenge down to the Premier as well. But the other thing too, as a caucus, we are a very diverse caucus, and there's no way that, in that caucus, people won't have an opinion. People would say, oh, you know what, let's just do this because it might make sure that we get a few more votes. If the issue, actually look at what the issue is. The issue with One Nation looks at people who are disenfranchised, looks at people who feel like someone's taking something from them. So is the issue about jobs? Is the issue about education? Is the issue about the fact that people can't afford to buy houses? Let's actually look at what the issue is and address the issue, because if you address that issue, you take away the argument that somebody is taking something from me. Because the whole way that a party like One Nation seems to operate is by blaming somebody else. Blame your woes on another person. And we saw that particularly, we've seen that in the States. Part of that is, you know why you can't get a job? Because that person who came from that country came and took your job. Well, the fact of the matter is, there's people driving taxis who are engineers. They're not the ones who are taking that supermarket job. You can't compare yourself to those sorts of things. So I think we need to look at the root causes of why people are going now. I think, Noah said it. We don't dismiss it, we don't ignore it. But let's address the root cause. If everybody's got a job, people can afford a house, people can send their kids to good schools, there's a good health system, what is there to complain about? But it's easy to complain when you look at your woes. So that's what we need to address.
Okay. Next question, please.
Well, I'll ask a question. Okay. I'm a psychotherapist, psychologist, which means that I see a wide range of people. And what I'm concerned about, in particular, haven't particularly touched on, is it's men who are actually hateful towards women. It's, they don't particularly say much about the men, it's about women. It's the burden. It's right, it's the full clothing, but it's absolutely putrid. It's like a vile hatred. And I'm sure they must be saying that within their own friendship group. So I think there is a link with these people, between misogyny of the worst degree, and also a really hateful attitude. And it's being targeted on the women. Now, I think the ABC is doing a terrific job to always have a really good woman spokesperson who from the Middle East. I mean,
Yes,
it's
ma'am,
excellent.
yes, ma'am, yeah.
That's excellent, and that must be having an influence. But I think there is a part of our society, part of our people who are not saying very much about the men, but it's quite vicious about the women. I just wonder whether you're aware of that.
Well, I mentioned that. So I mentioned that in my speech, and I actually gave a very clear what I thought about men who choose to be tough guys, over women. I think that's actually the weakest thing that you can do. I worry because I think it's actually the classic act of a bully and the misogynist to try and have strength over somebody that they perceive as being weaker. And it's an intimidation form, and they see women then as a potential target of their hatred because they're not going to fight back in a physical sort of a sense. So, I mean, you're a psychoanalyst, you know these things better than I would, but it's a real worry. I think, and maybe sometimes we can get accused of being sexist. I have a real issue when women are being picked on, when women are being mistreated, because I think, you know what, they're all classic, don't pick on someone your own size kind of a thing, but you see an amount of things that come my way in terms of the women who cop it because they're much more vulnerable. If I was to talk specifically about, say, Muslim women, whether they wear the niqab or whether they wear the hijab, that is a symbol. I walk down the street like this. People don't probably see that there's nothing that identifies me as the Muslim person. But if I was to walk down the street and wear a hijab, that identifies it straight away. If I was to wear like a traditional clothing, that identifies it straight away. And so I think this is what I said earlier about that idea that you can have freedom of speech, but it seems you can't have freedom of expression. And we're aware of it. I think it's an awful thing. But I think, again, the way that part of it is to address it is to take away the mystique and demystify the other, because I think people are really shocked when there's kind of expect that someone is being they're being forced into that, when some women will say to you, you know what, this is actually I feel that it's my liberation. Now, for whatever reason they do it, that's their choice. But in our great nation, we provide that choice. And then the thing that shocks people, I think, is when they realise that some of the women they're talking about are incredibly articulate, incredibly intelligent, and will put them in their back pocket, so to speak, in terms of an argument. And then we'll talk about some of the ochre stuff. Well, they've got it more than anybody else. So it's an issue. Indigenous women cop it. Women from the subcontinent cop it. It's the weakest thing that can happen when a man picks on a woman and is not only violent in terms of a physical form, but in an aggressive form or in a behavioural form. And so I'd love to see someone who has a go at women do it when they've got, their sons around or their husbands around. They don't do it. It's a cowardly act.
Okay. Wait on. Hang on.
I just want to make a couple of very good points. The first is that, agreeing with Jihad, we've seen a spike, again, I don't want to call it a spike, but there's maybe an increase in reporting and awareness of domestic violence in Australia. So, that's something that we have to keep in mind when we think about the violence against women. There's been a fair bit of reporting about the number of women that die on a weekly basis as a result of the violence of their partner or ex-partners. But I think there's also there's one other factor there, and that is that in the sort of long history of Australian colonialism and of British imperialism and sort of Western imperialism, there is a sense that women have been a part of the possession of empire. The men who colonise have a right to women, and I won't go into too much length, but there's a sense that in many colonised parts of the world, the women needed to be protected. And so, the covering up of women, the removal of women from public spaces became part of that sort of attempt to to protect women from the colonial project or from the exposure to colonialism. And I think that's probably part of what's happening here as well. Men are not just reacting to the fact that they're culturally different, they're not available. They're not able to be part of their sort of remit. There's a powerlessness in not being able to see a woman's body. You know, and I think that's playing out, and that's probably the psychoanalytical part that not that I have any experience in. So yeah.
Okay, next question.
My name is Mishka. I prefer to sit. I normally think that the problem is for the first generation migrants. But looking at this, I'm in that category. And then what I observe with young people speaking broad Australian accent, and they go to schools, and I see the difference. They just physical difference, but they basically merge into a kind of Australianness. But in France seems to be different, and I wanted someone to mention how they see the situation in France, where is the second or the third generation of particularly Arabic people or Algerians who feel they don't fit, their mindset is different, or religion is different, and anyway they are not respected or whatever, and they cause problems. So what's responsible for that in France? Because usually in Australia the discussion doesn't go into the situation in France, but when you are, like I come from Poland, it's very much the situation of Western Europeans that gets heard, not situation. How do you understand?
Who wants to have a go?
Would you like to have a go first?
You go, and then I'll have a go about after that.
Okay, it's a very good question. I mean, Australia is a settler society. It's a society that's built over the indigenous population, and it comes with a particular history. France, of course, has its own history as a colonial power. Many of the people that you talk about, the Algerians, the West Africans, who make up a large proportion of the ghetto population in cities like Paris and Marseille, are people from former colonies, and it comes with a particular, I mean, it's my understanding of it. I'm no expert on French politics at all, but I guess I draw from some of the comparisons from Britain, where there was that sort of idea in the 1970s when you had the people from the Caribbean, India, Pakistan, and a number of other colonies moving to Britain and setting up or living there, migrating there. This notion of the empire striking back, that people from the empire going to the centre and making it their home. But of course they're never really accepted as British or as French. I mean, this was one of the great contradictions of the colonial project, was that colonialism was predicated on the idea that Europeans were going out into places like Africa and Australia and elsewhere to make the indigenous people European. The civilising mission, the white man's burden. But built within that was this notion that it could never be like us because they're inherently different. And that's why the colonial project failed. One of the major reasons it failed was because of that contradiction. You can't go over there to someone and say, we're bringing you everything that we have, but you can never be like us. At some point people are going to say, well, this is a pretty fucked up equation. Excuse my French. Yeah. And people did. They went, hang on a sec, if we can't be like you, then what's the point of you being here telling us to be like you? And I think in places like France and Britain, and to some extent Italy with the Libyan and Ethiopian population that have moved there is this sense of that stigma or that repressed anger over colonialism that plays out in the sort of modern period. Yes, I mean, certainly it's true in Britain, I think, where the sense that the British gave to the colonised this special gift and that the people who have come to Britain aren't respecting that in the way that they behave, they haven't become British enough, is part of that, for me, that sort of unresolved tensions of colonialism.
Thanks. Thanks, Mishra.
This is Luke.
I didn't make it up.
Just go for it.
So I come back to a different thing, and you'll often hear me talk about belonging and about actually opportunity. If you have a look around at some of those areas and ask yourself, what's the level of unemployment like? What opportunities are there for young people to actually do something where they're useful, where they're feeling that they're valued, where they're actually feeling like they're making a contribution? What are the social conditions in which they're living? What are the conditions of even the streets and the parks and all of that sort of thing? What is it that tells this young person, and it's usually young people, who's kind of caught between two worlds? They're not French and they're not, Nigerian. They're actually caught in the middle of nowhere. So they're in France. Let's make them more French. But how do you make them more French? You make them more French by making them feel like they belong. The worst thing that we can do is when we get somebody to come in and settle, and then we make them feel like they owe us something. Because then that's always done with a sense of, patronism. We actually say, you settled, now you're part of this. You're part of our journey, you're part of our story. And if I look I'll bring it back home to Sydney, and I'll bring it back home to my electorate, the electorate of Lakemba. 150 different cultural groups. The most recent of our arrivals are the Bangladeshis. Big group, that's like the real emerging population around Lakemba. Real hard working, wanting to make a start, just get themselves going. There are bits and pieces but they don't feel they belong. We've got a high youth unemployment. So, bless you. So when I was asked by some of the local Bangladeshi shopkeepers, and I'd like to put an advertisement for Lakemba if I can. If you ever want to visit a great place, Lakemba is going to become the great touristy place. I'm telling you, it's got everything there except the infrastructure. So I was having some complaints from the Bangladeshi shopkeepers. They've got their little restaurants and supermarkets. That there were young boys who were just hanging around on milk crates, being a pain in the backside. And of course I'll fix everything. No, that was their opinion. So I went down there and I had a look around. I go, okay, let's just look at a very practical level. You're leaving the milk crates out the front of your shop. So you're giving them something to sit on. Secondly, have you actually started talking to the boys? No, we just tell them to go away. Has anyone actually made the effort to talk to them and to engage with them? It turns out that these boys, and they're probably in their mid-late teens, so group of them together, start smoking, start talking, they start swearing, they start carrying on. They're actually not bad boys, but they're boys with nowhere to go. Look around Lakemba, what is there? There is not one basketball ring in Lakemba. There is a little park that if they go down they get shooed away from. The nearest youth centre, you've got to jump on a train. These kids are not going to jump on the train to go to a youth centre. So what are the boys doing? The boys are just killing time. Now those boys don't feel that they're making a contribution to society. They're not going so well at school. They don't have the part-time job. So we need to actually look at some of those root causes as well. People don't disengage if they're engaged. They disengage because they feel that the society has nothing for them, that they are not part of the society. There is no future and there's no hope. So we talk about aspiration a lot, and you'll hear politicians talk about aspiration. But here's an idea. Instead of just talking about aspiration, shouldn't we actually be building the ladder so that they can actually climb into aspiration? Rather than just say, you can aspire to be this. That's really good. You can aspire to be anything. But our job is to actually build that ladder so that they've got a way of getting from point A to point B. Not just telling them that you can become something. So when I used to talk to some of my boys at school who would say, and they would say, sir, like they'd be cheering for a different cricket team, for example. Like when the footy was on or the cricket was on, they weren't going for Australia. I go, what are you talking about? You're Aussie. And so, you know what? The roughest boys and girls are actually the most honest, because they don't have their layers are about protection, but they actually don't try and tell you tall tales. And I remember a kid just going, because I'm not Aussie. I go, what do you mean you're not Aussie? He goes, I'm not Aussie. No one calls me an Aussie. I go, mate, we are. You are Aussie, just like I am. But he kind of felt that he didn't belong. And he kind of felt that there was nothing for him. So he becomes, in my opinion, vulnerable to disengage. And you know what? If that kid had a job, if that kid had a good education, if that kid had good environment around him, he had a really good park, he goes down to his local park, he sees spinifex, he goes to a park in another suburb, he sees swings, he sees shake cloth, he sees a barbecue area, he sees a garden park. Well, if I'm that kid, I'll go, well, people think I'm rubbish, that's what I'm going to become. Psychology is really important. Oh, thank you.
I'm Carol and I'm going to sit down too. I think it's really interesting, the two speakers, because Noah's sort of given us a bit of a global sort of thing and you're going to home. Globally, I feel, being a lover of historical novels, that most of our wars have been fought based on, you know, prejudice, racism, gender power. I don't think it's a new thing at all. Back to the home, which I have more affinity with, through the 80s and 90s, I worked in the Spanish schools program as a parent, and I was on state committee and various things, and I think we did some absolutely wonderful things. And we did lots of curriculum and stuff like that on gender stuff and inclusiveness and all this sort of thing. And then in the later 90s, I was working at a community centre in a school in Merrills, at Hilltop Road.
With Lilla?
Hilltop Road Public School. I started a community centre there with money from Wazaz.
Yeah.
And I was working with Lebanese and Turkish families and everything, and I would say there wasn't particularly a lot of racism in the school, but, you know, they were needy families. And then along came Pauline Hanson, and that was the first time I felt that there was real racism was in highlights in a way. And we started developing curriculum stuff about racism, anti-racism, in that sort of period. I think part of it's to do with the globalisation and stuff, and choice. And the families who could move from that school, Upton, you know, 4 or 5 families went to the Central Coast where there were no, you know, other people. And I don't think, you know, people of other races and that sort of thing.
They call that the white flight. There was a real serious issue, the white flight.
And they got lots of money for their big houses, and then, you know, the Lebanese built these big houses. And some of the Lebanese families were absolutely wonderful. I really loved working there. But my feeling is that a lot of it is to do with the flight from public schools and the fact that our kids aren't being educated altogether, because we don't know and understand the backgrounds of all the other kids. Like when you go to school with someone and you're there every day with them, you do, and you understand them, and I think a lot of prejudice is based on lack of understanding and fear of someone different. And I think it's extremely important that we try and reverse this thing. So I guess I'm not asking a question, but how do we reverse this? And how important do you think education in public schools of all kids together is in this question?
Who wants to go first?
Oh, well, look, of course. I mean, if I could have written myself a question, I think that would have been it. So my son's in year 4. My wife is Anglo. And his funniest thing is this blonde-haired kid called Muhammad Ali. It just doesn't suit, the image. His friends, he's got a friend who's Tongan, and this is his little group. A Greek guy, a person who's a Chinese background, obviously straight out Anglo, like going back a couple of generations, an African, and, I look around at his friends, and they're just his friends. He doesn't see them as, we see them because we have a laugh, and whenever we get together, because they then form their own little soccer team, and so of course the mums and the dads got involved, and we just have a laugh, and we just go, this is just the best, this is Australia. So he doesn't see it. He goes to his local public school, and so do they. I'm a big believer in the public education system, not only a product of it, that's actually the system that I champion, because it gives, I think, the proper cross-section of society. And the next thing I talk about is schools as community hubs. I've got issues with kids who live in a particular area and go to a school 3, 4, 5 suburbs down the road because they see that either as a better school or a better clientele. What they're actually doing is, by doing that and by allowing that, we're breaking the sense of community. Because a community, a school hub is its community. It's a reflection of that community. For people who have got money and feel that there's a better system in terms of going to the more exclusive private schools, that's their choice. Everyone's got a choice. But what they're doing is they're putting their children in a school bubble that's not the real world, because they are in an environment with people who are just like them, or people with the same sort of finances, or whatever it may be. Now, I know of families that work 3 jobs a week, 3 jobs, so that they can, then they're poor, but they have been sold this idea that if you send your child to X school because they wear a really nice tie and they've got good contacts, then your kid's going to have opportunity. Unfortunately, that kid in that school is always identified as the poor kid. And in his local or her local public school, they're not. So that sense of inclusivity is the most important thing. But also what it allows is it allows kids to see the other. And the other is not by their race, it just becomes my mate such and such. And that's actually what public education can do in its purest form. That's actually what it's really about.
Yeah.
It's about creating a community where everybody is judged on whether they're a decent person or not judged on how much money they've got, what language they speak. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that my kids, I just love it so much that my kids go to a school where there are so many different cultural groups, and my girls go to a school where they are taught to be strong, independent women, free thinkers. That to me is what public education's about.
No?
I also support, this won't be surprising, public education, but I want to digress from that. Education is very important. I agree with everything Jihad said. There are two points I want to make. One is that I think we place too much emphasis here on cultural difference. I'll give a little story, a little anecdote. My sister, who's lived in London for best part of 2 decades, came to Australia a couple of years ago, and she went out for a meal with some friends, long-time friends from here from Australia. She hadn't seen for a long time. And there were a few stories, and she came to me the next day, or we met the next day, and she said to me, you know what's really interesting? How often here in Australia someone talks about someone through their ethnic identity? Chinese cab driver. Yeah. She said, but that doesn't happen in London. Yeah, just a cab driver. And she said it's quite incredible after living overseas for a long time that it's so, and all due respect, Jihad, but there is a sense that we overplay that, and we don't take people as people. First and foremost, we always add this. Lebanese Australian, Greek Australian. Let's do away with all those identities altogether, and we may actually start to overcome some of these differences.
But I think we get that. I think we get that when everybody feels that everyone belongs.
Sure.
And that's the whole idea that we actually all under that Australian banner, and that's a really important one. People bring their heritage, but I agree with you. We do probably spend a little bit too much time with that. But sometimes for people who don't belong one place or the other, that actually becomes how they identify themselves. I'm a bitzer.
Yeah. So this is where I come to the second disagreement with you. I don't like the idea of our story, our Australian story, because our Australian story is actually a dominant story that's shaped by a particular group of Australians who have dominated Australia for a long time. And it comes through the Anzac myth, it comes through the masculinity of Australia. There's all these, that's the dominant narrative. And people are forced into that narrative to be Australian. If we really wanted to think about how we move forward, let's deconstruct that narrative and create a new one. One that's not built on this notion that, outback, the outback Australia, the Anzac myth, that the Ocker Aussie is what sort of drives this notion of Australian identity. I agree we need an our story, but we need a new our story, not fitting Australians into the existing our story. Because that our story is male, white, rich, and you can go through the whole list of sort of dominant narratives or dominant themes in that narrative. And the third thing I'd say is we need to do away with the word race. Race does not exist. Science has proven there are not different races. In fact, Peter and I probably, for example, may share more genetic similarities than Jihad and I, even though Jihad and I have Lebanese heritage. So science has proven that race does not exist. It's a social and historical construct. It doesn't mean anything, and we should do away with the word altogether. Unless we're talking about a foot race or an Olympic race. But in terms of describing difference between people, we should shut it up, we should take it away, shut it up and leave it as a historical thing. And we shouldn't even use it at all. I dislike the word immensely. It is a 4-letter word after all.
You've already said one.
Is there
He was speaking French.
any other questions people have? There's a microphone coming to you.
I didn't know you could speak French.
Hi, my name is Grace. Picking up on identity and belonging, I'm wondering if what we're saying is creating this new story is about challenging what's been so much part of our culture, patriarchy, but the white supremacists, white superiority, Anglo-Celtic superiority, Christian superiority, and then what we're also seeing, not just here but across the world, is a bit of the backlash. That, it's like we thought we were the mainstream, and if you now join the mainstream with us, what does that make us? And where does our power actually go? So I suppose for me it's really about power, and so how do we actually challenge that power? And is what we're seeing, what some people call is the strong voices, the racist voices, are actually about people taking their power back. How dare you rise up aloud? How dare you take these opportunities, because these jobs are mine, these opportunities are mine, these, all of this is mine, and you're wanting to take it away.
Privilege is mine.
Privilege.
Yeah, indeed.
Who's first?
I'm happy to speak first. Yeah, absolutely. It is about privilege and the loss of privilege. I mean, if we think about the Australian, the most virulent and vocal Australians who are arguing for sort of cultural homogeneity, it's about the loss of my privilege. I mean, in a way, I don't want to focus just on Corey Bernardi, but there is a sense that he is talking for white men who feel that somehow they're no longer as privileged as they used to be. And that's what Andrew Bolt talks about all the time. The oppression of the white middle-class male. It is quite stark. I mean, I used to have a colleague who used to write about this, and the idea that he somehow is oppressed, private school, probably wouldn't, I would say as privileged a life as anyone I know. I mean, I have a very privileged life. I've gone through a process where today I don't think I've had a racist comment thrown my way for some time. No one has called me a man of Middle Eastern appearance for at least a decade, I would say. But there is a sense that there is this group in Australia and in the world that feel that their privileges are being dismantled, and that's what Trump's "Make Australia Great Again" is all about. The privileges of the white male American. That's why they flocked to him. And Obama was seen as a threat to that. So that's why there's so much enthusiasm. I mean, I don't know if anyone saw the speech Trump gave yesterday at Congress, but the applause that he received from white men about rolling back Obama's legacy was just, they were beside themselves with, probably the greatest moment they had since, since the
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I was going to say, since they put the antlers on in the moose halls that they all go to, but there was a sense of excitement that the legacy of the black president was being destroyed, and yeah, I agree entirely. It is entirely about that. Not entirely, but it plays such a large part.
Well, I think you hit it on the head there, the idea of power and privilege, and that is, it's that, what are we fighting for? Who do these people think they are? We've been like this for years and years and years, and this is how it's going to be, and I'm telling you, and if you ever watch, President Trump, the way that he carries on is like, I'm giving it to, I'm making America great again. When was America great? When they had the segregation, when it was not that multicultural that it was, when it was actually quite an oppressive country, and the way they could act. Is that when America was great? Is that what you talk about? The way that you had the whites and the blacks completely separated, and you know what? The whites would be the ones who have the power and who have the privilege. There is a challenge to that, because there are two things, and I come back to that. What is our story? We are in the process of writing our story, and it's our choice where we take the story that we want to create, that narrative. But it is a huge quantum shift, because what we're asking people who have had the privilege for a long time, I'm not asking much, share it. Stop putting us down. Stop treating people as second-class citizens, but make them feel like they belong and so forth. And so it is that real sense of belonging that we talk about. But if we have a look then at the different rise of the voices, and they're not dominant voices, they've just got a bit more of a platform. People have been saying this stuff for a long time. The difference is now we've got 24/7 media, you've got constant news. I mean, I could go on Twitter any time and find out what's happening in the world. And it's funny, because you said you don't get hassled as a man of Middle Eastern appearance. Some of the disgraceful things that I get on my Twitter by people who feel that it's their right now to be critical and to say what they want to say. And I don't mind if they say I've got like a terrible bald patch or a big nose, or my jokes aren't funny. That's fine. But it's when they start picking on things because you are challenging that. How dare you? How lucky you are to be in the New South Wales Parliament. You sit there and be quiet. Well, I'm not there to sit there and be quiet. I'm actually there to show people that this can happen, that if I can be there, then you can be there, and that you should aim to be there, because it is not the bastion of a few. It is a few and a privilege, what a great privilege and a great honour. But I keep telling everyone, if you want to know a challenge, run an election with a name like mine, and have the guts to do it, and then say this is why I'm doing it, and no amount of hate that you're going to spew towards me is going to stop that, because that is a challenge to that. But if you don't start, I'm not even breaking the ceiling, I'm just maybe like scratching a little bit. The break comes a lot later, but we're actually breaking the ceiling for better things, and we've got to have belief that these guys who are losing their dominance, they're clinging onto it with everything that they possibly can, and so they're going to throw everything that they can at it. And if we don't make sure that we've got that ability to just keep going and have that resilience and take small steps, well, then all we're doing is we're just creating a permanent underclass. So I really think there is a very, very strong. It's about privilege. It's about power. You can be really welcome, but you've got to be exactly like me. And don't think for a moment that you can be me. You just got to be like me, but you can't be me.
So it's that colonial motif all over.
Yeah.
We've gone well past our time. Are you happy to go a little longer? In that case, there's a lady.
I'm parked in the 1 hour parking, but that's all right. I'm sure something. That's after 6.
Put your hand up. Yep.
Surely you get a fine written off.
Mate, no way.
Go ahead now.
I'll make it very short. I had a lot of questions and so many ideas in my mind, but it seems to me I'm the only Asian in this room. Yeah, I really enjoyed your speeches, but let me I'll probably talk about something from the Korean perspective as an immigrant person. So I think the other members, participants had a very good question about the not knowing each other. So that makes the whole situation even worse. I mean, I can talk about the Korean community. They always stay in their group, and they are so afraid to go out. Just even they are permanent residents or they have citizenship, they consider themselves as the outsiders, and they call the people like you the foreigners. I always correct them. No, we are the foreigners.
But that's good. That means they feel they belong.
But then again, I am being treated as a betrayer. So I don't really follow the value of Korean, the heritage and the kind of things, but I value universal values, humanitarian values, not just national or the patriotic, that sort of, very narrow-minded values. And there is Korean people. We are very famous for, notorious for not being able to organize. So the people always concerned about the Korean political issues. They talk about the Korean dramas, the Korean culture, but we don't really stick together ourselves. And I'm barely just finding my place in the local groups, joining the unions, the campaign and stuff. But do you think that sort of attitude of ethnic group, in this case Korean people, will worsen the discrimination because of the lack of knowledge? Maybe so they say you have to know, you have to get to know something to find its beauty. But like as an example, sorry. So there was a federal election, so I worked really hard to put the Liberals last. But I was so surprised that the Labour candidates, Labour the members in my area, it was done from the Reed electorate, from Charlottesville, and they hardly knew anybody from the Korean community.
Yeah.
So I'm the one who was working for the candidates, doing most of the things and doing the translation and talking to Korean people, visiting the churches and stuff. But they've been there for a long time, and it is a very diverse area. But that is the current situation. Do you think that the ethnic groups have their responsibility for the situation, or is there any suggestions that you can make to make things better?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. You go.
So I'll keep the answer sort of fairly short. I think the more people can get involved in all elements of society, the better it is. It's pretty difficult to, maybe to put yourself out there, and it is a bit of a confidence thing. So what we would find is some groups that may, migrate to Australia initially find comfort within, people with a very similar cultural background or similar religious background. They go with the known. The really important thing then is to make sure that that doesn't become its own by itself, because what actually makes it better as a nation is when everybody is actually intermingling. That's what we don't want a assimilation model where everyone's the same, but rather an integration model where people integrate together and everybody is valued for what it is that they bring, because it's actually all of those things that make it really good. So I thank you for helping out with the campaign, on behalf of whoever the candidate was. Thank you. But I also think it's really important too that people who have got an opportunity to reach out to the communities that maybe feel that they're not known, to be able to reach out to them and extend that hand of friendship. But sometimes it also goes the other side. People go, I don't know anybody in the Korean from the Korean community in my area. For example, I know that.
You do know.
I do know. I like because I don't see them as that. I see them as us together. So I would encourage, yes, it's hard to begin with, but you know, when you take that first step, take somebody with you, and vice versa. And it's really terrific too that you do things that are not, you know, sometimes people have a stereotype of what certain cultural groups do. You do what you're interested in. It doesn't really matter. You're interested in race cars, join a race car group, join a library group, whatever it may be. So I think the responsibility is on everybody, because when groups isolate themselves or are isolated, then that leads to all this stuff that I talk about, the us and the them. And we can't have an us and a them.
Okay. There's one last question over here.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the speakers tonight. Great. Brief question. I'm an educator in the inner city. We do not have a problem at my school with racism because we have a very diverse community. My question is, how do you reach the people that are out of Sydney? And I'm including members of my own family and friends who I think are bigots and racists. How do you approach that?
Well, if it's a school one, my brother-in-law worked in a mine in Queensland, and you know, I said, like, mate, you're not voting for Pauline Hanson, are you? Yeah. He goes, oh, you know, she makes some really good things. I go, I want you to think of this. I want you to think of what she would think about my family, and I want you to think about what my family means to you. Oh no, man, I love your dad, your mum, I go, that's because you know them. But you need to understand, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm joining some schools, and we're taking kids from, it's a City Country Alliance. We're actually taking some kids from St Ives, Wiley Park, basically different parts of Sydney that are different mixes and stuff, and we're actually taking them for a week through to Lake Mungo, Broken Hill, to also experience some Indigenous culture, but it's also to get kids to interact. It sounds pie in the sky stuff, and you know, this is the stuff like, oh, that's a real lefty kind of a thing. I don't care. Isn't it? What's the problem with actually being criticised for thinking about others, but getting people together? But part of it is also that narrative that get presented. People keep getting presented in a negative light. If you don't have any interaction with them, then that's what opinion becomes fact. And so more and more finding ways of not only interacting, but normalising people who are different to you. So I get really excited when I see a person delivering the news who's of non-English background. I get really excited when I see an Australian compete. When I see an Australian compete in at the Olympics, and they're originally from a non-English background, because that keeps getting out a new narrative. It is a real challenge. The racism doesn't exist in places where people actually interact with one another, and this is what I was saying about 18C. We don't have a racist problem in a place where there's 150 different cultural groups. Yeah. The people with a racist problem are the ones who don't know, don't interact. They only base it on what they see, and if what they see is only presented through a very narrow negative prism, then that's what their opinion is. So in terms of changing that, the more representation we see, and the same could be said for gender, the more women we see on big boards, the more that actually changes the way that people think and the psyche that people have as well. It's that changing mindset, but it's also presenting things through a prism that shows people for their skills and for their ability, not for their backgrounds. So that's what it is. But I'm really looking forward to the trip out to Broken Hill in a couple of weeks, because we're bringing together different things. And I'm just going to wrap it up with how small things can happen. So everyone knows Scott Morrison. And please. Scott Morrison and Jason Clare and I took a group of kids through Kokoda. This was back in 2009. and we called it the Mateship Trek. Scott Morrison represents an area in the Sutherland Shire. Jason represents an area in the Bankstown area. Diametrically opposed in every sense, you know, in every sense. But what we did was we took kids from the, and we took like emerging leaders. So these kids like about 18, 19. And we thought, let's trek Kokoda. Because when you strip away everything, we're actually all people going through this really arduous, difficult journey. And the conversations that took place between the guy who was the captain of the Wanda Surf Lifesaving Club and the girl who wore the burkini, Mekalala, you know, that became a feature, the first Muslim burkini person in the surf lifesaving. I overheard part of that conversation as I was sort of like eavesdropping while mosquitoes were buzzing in my ear and whatnot. The stuff they were talking about was actually just stuff that any people would talk about. They weren't talking about religion, they weren't talking about culture, they were talking about themselves, which is what people do. The following time, we did every 2 years, we also had Rob Oakeshott come. And Rob Oakeshott, this is when he was, you know, the Independent at the time, and we jokingly called, "Are you the Kingmaker?" And I think at one stage someone tried to push him off a cliff, you know, like, because they were just trying that. Only joking, they didn't do that, it's recorded. But he also brought with him kids with indigenous heritage. So we had kids from a variety of multicultural backgrounds, kids from a strong Anglo-Celtic background, kids from an indigenous background, and we trekked again. And the last one after that was the Black Cat track through Papua New Guinea. And again, this same principle of taking kids who are different, but they're actually not different at all. And they just need to go through this journey together. And we specifically chose the people that are leaders and are potential leaders, because a lot of people do this as a rite of passage. You know, someone will do it and then they'll get so patriotic and nationalistic, they'll tattoo the Southern Cross. Tattooing the Southern Cross on your chest doesn't make you a better Australian.
Yeah.
It just makes you a person who wants to put a tattoo on their chest. This was not a rite of passage. This was actually a getting to know you for people who would have influence in the future, so that when somebody was in a group and they were hearing negativity about a particular group of people, they'll say, well, you know what? No. And having the courage to stand up and to say what they believe in and to fight for those who don't have the voice, regardless of what it is. So they're the little steps. But the big steps are when you start seeing people on shows like Home and Away who have got a different cultural background, who are not playing the bad guy. I want to see a Pacific Islander not playing the sports guy. I want to see a Pacific Islander who's not playing the gangster, the bodyguard, I want to see that. And once we see that, that's that changing prism that I'm talking about.
Okay. This is one more comment from Noah.
I'm going to be very brief. I think that's all necessary, but I don't think it's enough. I think it's far from enough. I think we need to really challenge the way we think about identity, and the way we think about the way we talk about it, at a very, very basic level, a very, at a very sophisticated level in a sense. That is, we need to start to think about ourselves as human beings first, and then I think we can start to move beyond the tendency to reduce everything to culture, nationality, race, ethnicity, religion. And when we can do that, I think we can, and gender, and sexual preference, and all these other forms of difference that we constantly focus on. And one step forward in that process, I think, is to start to look at what it means to be egalitarian. We talk about Australia as an egalitarian country, but we have some of the highest levels of inequality per capita in the world today. 80,000 Australians will sleep rough tonight. 1 million children live in poverty. I mean, it's important to address cultural issues, but how about addressing those issues as well? And I think the storyline sometimes gets skewed by our privilege. I mean, I think I said earlier, I've never heard Cory Bernardi make an argument or a statement about economic inequality. But why would someone who's very privileged, who benefits from the economic system, question it? And I think when we start to question the inequality and the causes of it, we might take the focus off identity altogether and start asking some really deep and meaningful questions about what it means to be egalitarian.